Chapter 1. We tell stories every day, but only a few make history. Some stories shape our lives. We may not notice them, but they are waiting for us to find and share them. We grow up with films, cartoons, fairy tales, and books. As we develop, tales become part of our consciousness. We want stories to accompany our lives. Therefore, when someone says they will tell us a story, we have certain expectations. We wait for the beginning, climax, and resolution. If these expectations don't come true, we get disappointed. Some people are afraid to show the power of their words. They feel frustrated when listeners do not burst into applause after each punch, although stories don't always have to make a TED Talks effect. At the same time, others are overly confident about their tales. But true storytelling is about balancing emotions, confidence, and mindfulness. True stories contain fundamental, timeless elements that give them strength. The power of storytelling can influence people, convince, inspire, and prevent them from doing unnecessary things. All your stories are worthy, but they reveal their true power when they influence someone's worldview. Writer Rob Biesenbach lived a double life. He was doing business in the daytime while developing his acting career, rehearsing and auditioning in the evening. He realized that communication is a performance and that he could become a more effective negotiator by combining his two lives and applying his acting skills to business. Biesenbach believes that everyone can tell a good story. This summary will make the storytelling process more transparent for those who underestimate or overestimate their abilities by offering practical advice for writing quality texts. Also, you will discover what makes a strong story and see that storytelling is an exact science. You will make your stories work. You will become familiar with the universal structure of stories and free them from unnecessary details. The summary will show examples of different stories and teach you how to find worthy tales. You will learn to use your storytelling skills in various situations, from job interviews to wedding speeches. Chapter 2. Don't be unfounded. Provide compelling examples for your story. Stories uniquely affect our brains. Researcher Paul Zak discovered that stories make the brain release oxytocin, a hormone associated with empathy. Other studies have shown that while listening to a story, the brain triggers the same areas as when experiencing an actual event. A good story virtually blurs the lines between storytelling and actual experiences. We subconsciously associate ourselves with the protagonist of the story and place ourselves at its epicenter. Our palms sweat and our heart rate increases. This is our body's feedback. Biesenbach identified 6 keys to a strong story. Emotions. A compelling story evokes an emotional response. The story should have a face. People do not remember percentages and statistics, but they will feel a kinship with the character that personifies the issue. The stories should connect your listeners with each other and with your brand. Stories make us more human. They should remind people of who they are. Stories should reiterate the importance of values such as love and care. They should temporarily distract people from their routine experience. Show, don't tell. Back up your words with a reliable example. Biesenbach called the violation of the 6th principle Match.com syndrome. People use similar phrases on dating websites, "I am adventurous" or "I am smart," but they are ineffective. Instead, share a photo of your whitewater rafting trip or share your impressions of the last book you read. The story should indeed reveal the person, not provide another label. Remember the beginning of the movie The Godfather and the way Don Corleone sat calmly and majestically at the head of a large table? It said more than if the film had opened with him stating he was the powerful head of a criminal empire. Therefore, do not say that you are responsible during a job interview. Instead, tell that story where you worked all night to meet a deadline. Your story should offer people something they can't refuse. Did you know? People strive for new stories every day. According to worldwide statistics, people spend $90 billion a year on films and another $90 billion on video games. Chapter 3. Create heroes and empower them. Inspire your audience to overcome obstacles. Each person has their definition of a story. Mostly, we believe that a story should have a beginning, a middle, and an ending. It's true, but the story also needs filling. The simplest definition of a story is a character pursuing a goal in the face of an obstacle. The way the hero overcomes the obstacle and reaches the goal forms the narrative. There are more storytelling techniques. There is also a turning point, climax, denouement, and more. But character, purpose, and challenges are the foundation of your story. Let's explore the examples of a great story. Romeo and Juliet have a goal. They want to be together. They are facing a challenge, overcoming the blood feud between their parents. The reader decides whether they could cope with the challenge. They end up together, right? Try to analyze the movies and TV shows you are watching and determine their structure. Famous stories adhere to a structure with a protagonist overcoming obstacles because people love associating themselves with the hero. If your story seems lifeless and shallow, add new elements by answering the following questions. 1. Is your character an individual? Your character should be close and understandable to the audience and share their values and humanity. 2. Have you thought about the conflict? Conflict is the tension between your character's goal and the obstacles in their path. For example, tell how your team faced a situation that they did not anticipate in the plan. A catchy story is impossible without conflict. 3. Are the stakes high enough? The problem in your story should be serious. Strive for more. 4. Is there a clear cause and effect? Events must be linked and lead to some consequences. 5. Is your story emotional enough? The more feelings you give to your audience, the more they will want to continue interacting with your story. A sure sign of a weak story is when you find yourself saying, "and then," over and over again. Rob Biesenbach. The standard structure is to introduce the character and setting at the story's beginning. The protagonist can be you, the founder of the company, any character that fits the story and can convey your message. Then a challenge arises on the hero's path, and the action moves to the middle, the part where the character overcomes obstacles. The protagonist achieves or does not achieve the goal in the end. Remember that you can add elements of surprise to your structure, plot twists. Don't let the existence of a familiar structure limit your imagination. Chapter 4. Behind every story, there are ideas and honesty. Knowing the structure is not enough. It is also essential to be able to create a story. Tales do not fall from the sky every day, but there are several techniques to help you get creative. Making a story requires the following steps. Define your audience and study it. Your audience could be buyers, potential employers, the public, or the jury. Biesenbach advises doing audience research, even if you think you know everything about it. Explore their interests, fears, moods, and needs. Determine what connects you. Set a goal. Determine what you want from your audience, for example, to motivate them to buy. Think about possible obstacles that might stand in the way of your goal. Find a character who overcomes obstacles. The protagonist is the essential element of the story, the hero, the emotional center with whom the audience should associate. Your listeners don't have to be Jedi to associate themselves with Luke Skywalker, but they should have a similar sense of adventure and shared values. Make sure your story has a resolution. Remember, the audience loves it when the story has a happy ending. Let the problem always find a solution. Every story starts with a goal. Stories overflowing with emotions stay with us forever. So, if you want your audience to do something, they need to feel something. A sincere way to evoke emotions is to express your feelings, inspiring empathy in people. But try to be honest and don't overact. Here are some tips to get the most out of your emotions. Answer the question, why? For example, why are you happy to go to work? Make people proud to be part of the company or the brand. Mention an influencer or historical figure who is your role model. Share a personal experience, such as a childhood story. Facts are helpful, but emotion is essential. Remember, being open is not a weakness. People love personal and candid stories and will not judge you for being honest, but don't accentuate the emotions of sadness or anger. Passion, enthusiasm, and joy will resonate in the hearts of the audience members. Chapter 5. Stories that worked. Examples and explanation. It's time to put your story into action. Let's look at practical examples of stories for different situations. The new CEO of a truck manufacturer wanted to meet the team. For the first group, he prepared a regular presentation. After a few slides, they bombarded him with questions, and the discussion turned into a shouting match. He prepared a personal story about the difficult path to his position for the second group. As a result, the staff listened to his speech till the end and even wanted to shake his hand. So, the moral of this story is, use the personal story technique when joining a new team where you must show your humanity. Another example is motivation to change behavior. Grand Canyon visitors received flyers with the story of a 24-year-old woman who died in the canyon due to a lack of map and water. It is a solid and compelling cautionary tale that clearly shows what actions and inactions can cause. You can win the client's favor by appealing to values. Biesenbach cites the example of a team that proposed a furniture manufacturer for their business. They presented a video in which people talked about the importance of furniture in their lives, the old grandfather's chair or couch on which the family watched the Super Bowl. Customer sympathy is guaranteed. When there is humanity in a story, it resonates with the audience. A great storyteller can filter out unnecessary things and focus on the essential elements. Rob Biesenbach offers 7 ways to organize stories. Every detail of the story should support your goal. Jokes are good, but it is better to discard them if they are inappropriate in the story's context. This applies to all the exciting but out-of-the-box details. There may be many great characters in your story, but there should be one key character. Don't stray from the topic. A story is like a tree. It can have many branches, but don't forget where the root is. Don't turn a 20-minute monologue into an hour-long odyssey. Your story doesn't have to document every turning point. Pick one and focus on it. Life is not a Hollywood movie. Use details wisely. Define the setting. Use sensory details to bring the story to life. Limit the use of dates and omit proper nouns. Do not stretch the exposure. Sometimes you can embellish a story for the sake of its message. You don't need to change its truth, but you can make it more effective. And whatever you do, don't begin with, "This is a story about." Just start telling the story. Rob Biesenbach. Chapter 6. How to find stories and make them creative. Imagine you have a deadline. You have to make a presentation or prepare for an interview. You are doing online research to save time, But most of the stories on the web have been told hundreds of times, or they lack enthusiasm and vitality. The hardest part is coming up with a story when you really need it. Rob Biesenbach offers methods to add stories to your anecdote collection without the help of Google. Keep your ears open. You can find unusual stories in the most common places. Are you at a party? Time to collect pearls. Read more books. Memoirs and biographies are excellent sources of valuable stories. Explore the world. Go to the theater or take a guitar lesson. Sometimes an appropriate analogy, phrase, or metaphor can replace an entire story. Choose words that evoke emotions. For example, social media expert Paul Gillen advocates using more expressive verbs. Replace rise with climb or soar, and take with grab or seize. Metaphors serve as a universal shorthand for conveying global ideas. Therefore, love sometimes turns into a battlefield, and a sensitive person turns into a flower. You can also use comparisons to make large numbers easier to read. Replace this and that number of acres with the size of Manhattan. There is also a dark side to storytelling. For example, sometimes stories distort the facts. Some people deliberately tell untrue things for their benefit. Others are not telling the truth because the brain can distort reality due to early beliefs. For example, Biesenbach's father served in the army and often parachuted during training exercises. When Biesenbach was a child, his head got stuck between some railings. Luckily, his father parachuted down to the house and rescued him. Of course, this cannot be true, but the brain is a storytelling machine so that a similar picture could take root in a child's mind. For example, adults could retell a similar story to a child as a joke, but the child would remember this story as the truth. Chapter 7. Storytelling in Business. How to support your brand and make a brilliant presentation. Stories are essential for a business. They explain how and why it was founded, communicate its purpose, and introduce the people behind the brand. They make the company more human in the eyes of customers. Like others, the origin story of your brand requires characters, purpose, conflict, and resolution. The only difference is that this story always connects to the wishes of the audience. It should explain what you can do for them. Here is a scheme for a storyline which you can publish on your brand's website. Start the story by mentioning the founder. The founder solves a problem or comes up with a new business idea. They bring the idea to life. The company grows, develops, and gains leadership positions. Despite the success, the company continues to adhere to the values with which it started. In this scheme, it is up to you to apply conflict, humor, turning points, and, most importantly, emotions. Another way to tell a story is by presenting it live. But remember that a presentation is not a set of slides. It's a living tale that should hook the audience. Implement stories that fit your topics but don't get carried away. Going too far off topic can make you seem uncommitted. Your stories should resonate with the data and evidence, but refresh them often to avoid losing your audience's attention. There are no set rules for how many stories you can tell during a presentation. Biesenbach noted that he tries to craft a compelling story for each major section. But don't forget that you are likely to be limited in time, so use tales wisely. Try to start and end your presentation with a story. In this case, the closing story should be an extension of your opening story. This trick, mainly if the ending contains an unexpected twist, can make a vivid final impression on the audience. Words reveal all your feelings. Be honest about what you say. Another stressful event, similar to a presentation, is when you hear the words, "Say a few words," during a celebration. For example, You are asked to toast a birthday person. Use the following tips. Use the rule of 3. Describe the person with 3 specific words that accurately emphasize their personality. Back it up with a story that reveals one of their most outstanding qualities. Throw away the unnecessary, but don't ignore the important details. Keep track of the time. Sometimes the best decision is to drop all the rules and speak from a pure heart. Conclusion. A story is the power of words and soul that you put into your text. Remember that a good story has a basic structure, and this is important because people have expectations for stories, but not every tale needs to follow the same format. There are endless alternatives. Make sure there is a clear conflict, risks, and a character that people can understand. Stories should always be attached to the audience and aligned with goals. Don't forget about the details that make your story more fulfilling and alive. For example, if there was a funny, catchy phrase, it's better to retell it but not entire dialogues. Storytelling is about condensing and interpreting events in order to better ensure audience understanding. Rob Biesenbach. To be a good storyteller, you need to open yourself to stories. Listen to talks in queues. Read more. Interact with people when you walk your dog. Stories await us at every turn. The real potential of storytelling is to communicate truth through words to set us apart from the noise of all the other stories in the world. And they ensure that we are remembered for who we are. Sometimes talking about yourself is the hardest thing. Turn your life into a fable. Introduce the audience not only to facts from your life, but also to yourself. What sets you apart from others? What inspires you? What are your values? The answers to these questions will reveal you better than the dry facts. Remember to study your audience before each story. Customers, your blog readers, and employers who might offer you a job are 3 different audiences. Each requires a unique type of story. Stories are practical, but it is impossible to convey your point of view without a soul. Try this. Rob Biesenbach offers some simple points for delivering a story. Don't ignore practicing. Rehearse your speech at home. Bring energy into the story. When talking about a hot day, the audience will believe you if you pretend you are exhausted from the sun's rays. Use different intonations and gestures, but do not overplay.